settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin, and today we got Remberto Rivera with us. He is the owner of Sunnyside Accounting, and we've actually met through the RBO community, the mastermind community, and I wanted to bring him on today to give his story and tell his story of him growing his business and some of the struggles that he's currently facing and how he's overcoming them, because at the end of the day, our stories and our journeys and learning from other people's stories and journeys help others, right? So let's dive in. Thank you so much for coming on today, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is super exciting for me, man. Yeah, thank you so much.
So how did you get started in, let's say, business? Let's start there, right? What was your entrepreneurial drive? Like, where did you start in business?
How far do we want to go back? I guess that's the question. So, I mean, I could share about, I was 8 years old, mowing people's lawns, pushing this super heavy. I'm like struggling pushing up because what's it called? The power wasn't getting, the wheels weren't getting enough power mowing these lawns and charging my neighbors. And so, from when I was little, I think that's kind of where it started, that whole mindset of being an entrepreneur and just trying to make some extra money. We kind of came from a family that didn't have too much money. So I think that was always the mindset of get it however you can. And then, eventually I had that business, and I had a small, not very successful snow cone business. And when I was like 10, 11, and then I actually DJed in college. So through my undergrad, I was a DJ and continued. I actually did that for like 10 years. I always knew that I wanted to do something in business. That was just kind of something that I really liked. And then I went to college. I actually went to college during the recession. So I was going to go for international business, and I took a couple classes there, and I was like, you know what? I need something. It's just something different that I wanted, So I went to accounting. Honestly, I was like, what's the hardest thing I could do? Like, if I'm going to be in school, like, what's the hardest? And I figured it was accounting. And also it was kind of like supposed to be bulletproof, graduated with accounting, and, kept DJing, but I had my like full-time jobs, stayed at a place for 4 years, jumped to a different one. And really the jump was because I wasn't being challenged at my first job. So I wanted to kind of bet on myself to take the leap and see what else was out there. And in between, I started Sunnyside Accounting because I always had that itch to start my own thing in the accounting world. But that one I kind of held off because I knew it would be a little bit harder. And I was like, if I do this is going to be for the long run. And then in 2020 with COVID, I got laid off. So then I had to go all in with Sunnyside Accounting.
Okay. So you were doing Sunnyside Accounting like on the side at first, and then you were like, finally, I'm just going to make that jump because your hand kind of got forced, right?
Yeah. So it was, the same kind of reasoning behind like when I was little, on the weekends, making, $25, $50 on the weekend, to in college, being a DJ, trying to make some extra money on the side. Same thing, I was able to pay my bills, but there wasn't much left over during my regular job. So then I got a couple clients. I think once I was laid off, it was like 10 clients or something like that I had under my belt. And it was like a blessing in disguise, right? I remember the date and the time that I got told that I was laid off during COVID. And I was like, all right, time to, do this full time.
Yeah, I can see the book behind you. It was time to go all in.
Right? Yeah, super good book. Yeah.
So, how has your personal development journey been? Because I could see all the books behind you. Like, how has your personal development been along your journey of starting, Sunnyside Accounting and, everything? Have you always been into reading? Have you always been into podcasts? Or what have you done?
I think as an entrepreneur, to be somebody that is successful, you have to look for that personal development, because too many times in like your W-2 job, you kind of get your hand held a little bit too much. And by that, somebody checking in on you. How's that going? Is it not going well? Or if you mess up, somebody has the answer for you. But when you become an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to find all the answers, and there's times where you don't want to work. And that's where the self-development kicks in, right? Developing that discipline. And then, so for me, it's been a lot of books, audiobooks. I'm not a really good reader, so a lot of audiobooks. And the podcast, like the RBO podcast is really big for me. Just getting into that mindset of, being comfortable with change and even looking to be uncomfortable. If you're like writing that and things are going really smooth, what's the next step? Then, you're kind of maxing out where you're at right now. So yeah, a lot of podcasts and the audiobooks, I would say.
No, so that's awesome. And I mean, I can say that, you are doing stuff that's making yourself uncomfortable. I mean, you said this was your first podcast before we, started the episode. And, when I had, asked everyone if they wanted to come on and stuff, and there was like no takers. And I was like, this is a free shot for you guys to, just tell your journey. And then all of a sudden, that's when we linked up. So it's that getting uncomfortable, becoming an entrepreneur. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to work on yourself. But I would say that, in a W-2 job, there's still entrepreneurs, right? So if you're getting your hand held and you're waiting to be told what to do, that means you're comfortable at settling at your current position, right? You're not looking to even move up in a company. But if you have that drive to at least try to better yourself, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's entrepreneurship, like you're only going to be as successful as you're willing to put in the work for, right?
Yeah. And I think that was like a big, again, that blessing in disguise, because so my first company, it was like a huge company. It was like 30 accountants where I worked, right? And there was like a natural progression. I came in young, hungry, I was looking to move up every time. And so during my 4 years there, I had 3 different positions every time. I even actually kind of skipped a step on my first promotion. And then when it came to where I was looking for my next position, I was kind of maxed out and I didn't have the experience, and they kind of reassembled the team. Till now, looking back, like it made sense, what they did. But inside, I was like, well, what the heck? Like I was supposed to take the next step. So then I started looking for that next position, took the jump, more responsibilities, and looked for more pay as well, right? And but what happened at this next company was that it was a smaller company, and there wasn't as big of or as clear of a roadmap as to where I could grow. And I think a little bit of that started, or like a little bit of settling started happening for me there, where I was like, well, there's not another position and I could do my job right and everything's good. And maybe that fueled a little bit subconsciously of starting my own practice. But then once they told me, that there was no work, then that, I jumped onto Sunnyside, and then from there it's been, okay, what do we offer now? What's the next service? What's the next course that we take? What, how do we step this up, etc.
So what was that first roadblock, or what was that first obstacle, like that reality hit when you become an entrepreneur and, all of a sudden you think it's like, okay, business is X and this is all I have to do. And then once you're actually in it, all in, and then you're like, oh wow, there's a lot more to it. What was that realization for you?
Honestly, I think it's like the tax world, income taxes. So I was good at the bookkeeping stuff. I had figured that out really well, even the sales tax stuff. So Colorado is known for being super hard at nationally. We're like one of the worst for sales taxes. But I had actually worked a year and a half as a sales tax accountant. So that was fine for me, and even payroll kind of figured that out. But I think my first round of taxes, a lot of my clients had a lot of tax questions, and I actually hated taxes when I took them in college, and I wouldn't even do my own taxes. I would just give them to somebody, and they're like, oh, it's easy, blah blah. I'm like, don't even start explaining this, like just do the taxes. But we got into taxes, and clients had questions. I didn't have answers, and I needed to go figure out how to get these answers, right? And start getting into the tax world. And even today, there's so much that I've learned, but then there's so much more that I don't know. And at the time, that saying, you don't know what you don't know. And that was the thing for me. So once I started getting into the taxes, I was like, whoa, there's a lot here for me.
That's awesome though. I mean, I feel like in any industry, entrepreneurship or even, entrepreneurship, you're good at a skill, you're good at something, and then you want to move up, you want to grow, especially running your own business. Like you might be good at just bookkeeping, let's say, but then your clients demand more or want more or asking for more, and either you can refer them to other people who might also do what you do. And as people or as customers, we like easy, right? We like convenient. So either you start to lose clients, or you adapt and you mold, right? So that's awesome that you were able to start to realize that, okay, I'm getting a lot of these questions, I should probably start molding this into our game plan. Are you gonna say something?
Well, yeah, no, that's so the first year, that's what I started doing. I was just, and so I've had like a really good support network of other accountants around me that I have good relationships with, and I would refer them out. But then, I started thinking, I need to be able to support my own clients. When they have a question, I can't just say, hey, go to this other account, because people, I feel like, especially in the finance and accounting world, they want one place where they could go for everything. And as I started getting more clients, more questions, more referrals were going out, and I was like, no, we need to bring this in house.
Yeah, I mean, that's like when I had my personal training company before we launched the gym. I was always one of the busiest trainers, and it wasn't because like I was better than everyone. It was because clients, or let's say someone would come up like, my dad has Parkinson's. Like, do you train people with Parkinson's? I was like, oh yeah, of course. I had no idea what the difference was. So then before our session, I was literally researching. I was doing, studying everything I needed to do. And then now I can do, clients with Parkinson's, right? So it's sometimes you just have to, again, go all in and just take the jump, and then, figure it out and make sure that you can do those things. But if you, especially in a world like finance, if you're getting enough questions, and that's the time where like, okay, like a lot of people want this, I should probably add this in, right? And so that's awesome. You were able to adapt and continue to grow. And I'm sure you're still growing because, that industry is huge, and there's so many different avenues it can be taken, from bookkeeping to accounting to tax strategy to, CFO stuff and all this craziness. I mean, I only know surface level, right? I just know random stuff. I was talking to someone the other day, and they're in the financial space, and they kept using the word accountant, then they'd use CPA. And then I was like, hold on, are these different positions? And then they're like, yeah. I was like, honestly, I've always just used them interchangeably. Like I thought it was the same exact thing. Right. So there's so many different avenues, and it's crazy because people don't realize it. And being a business owner and being able to adapt to it is a huge thing, because we get in our own ways. We don't like to really mold. We think that we're specialists at this, we'll just do this. And that's awesome if you're okay with settling for where you are, right? So I got to give you, hats off for your adaptability in that. And I know we had talked about, a little bit about you trying to take a step back and delegate a little bit more. How has that been going for you?
Yeah, I mean, with the growth, I mean, we've seen a lot of, more work come in, right? So once we started offering those tax services this past year, we had the most tax returns that we ever got, right? And then that brings a lot more tax questions, and which means that takes up my time. So I'm our like tax accountant here, and I have my accountants that handle the bookkeeping and then the analytical work and sales taxes. But I've always been used to having my hands in everything, and this is my baby that I grew, right? But it's gone to the point where I can't hold it. I was juggling at some point, but then things started falling. So now I've really had to get used to delegating the work, trusting in my accountants. And, this is like the first time I'm in a position like this. So really learning how to be, a good leader to lead properly, not leading with fear, but trying to encourage these guys and helping them grow and making them feel comfortable. So that's where I'm developing right now, because I'm usually like, oh, I'll help you fix that, and I can fix it really quickly. And it's got me to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I can't keep doing, like, can't keep fixing everything. And my accountants are really good, and so I got to empower them to start doing some of the things that I've been holding on to.
No, and I think that's it. I agree. And like I've done that when I started bringing on a team and stuff. And I think everyone's guilty of that in the beginning, right? Because you built this up, it's your baby, like, and
Right.
you wanna make sure everyone's doing it in your mind as well as you would do it, and so forth. But once we start to realize that when we spread ourselves so thin, that it becomes what you think is your 100% on doing something is really like 10 to 30% of your capability of getting something done, or the quality of that you could be doing it, because you're doing so many things, right? And so, like you said, things are starting to fall off and get put behind. And so even if one of your team is doing 70 or 80% of what your 100% is, like spread across the board, you have 5 people that are all doing 80% of what your 100% is. That's still better than your 10 or 30% that you
Right.
have, because you spread it out, right? So once I realized that, I was like, okay, let's take a step back, and then let my team grow, because like you said, when W-2 employees, they get comfortable because they get their hands held, right? When we hold our team's hand because we think we're trying to help them, we're actually putting a crutch on them and not letting them grow, and we're basically putting a stunt on our business as well.
Yeah, and what I've realized is my accountants, again, I have nothing but good things to say about them. They have their own ideas, and they can come in and, because when you're the entrepreneur, you feel like you fixed everything so far, but then these guys come in, with fresh ideas, and or even like their own strengths. For example, I have both of my accountants right now that they're very different from each other, but they're really good at different things. So trying to position them to even to the advantage of the company, right? So, for example, one of them, she handles all the sales taxes. She came in and looked at how we were doing sales tax, and she's like, "This is a horrible way of doing sales taxes. What can we do? Can we restructure this?" Came in with ideas. We sat down, we talked about it, and then I was like, "All right, here's kind of like the plan." Put it together, or finish putting it together, and then we finished revising it, did a couple test trials, and then now clients are getting them used to that new, because a lot of clients were used to the way that I did it, right? But the system that we have in place now works way better, and it's because we empowered the accountant to voice their opinion and help us make things run smoother. And this past month was our most successful sales tax month since I can't remember the last time it was that good, So yeah, I mean, using they're I think like we get caught up on, hey, we can do everything, and then those old ideas stay there. No, how about we empower them and bring in the new ideas and kind of lift all the boats with that.
No, exactly. And I mean, that just goes to show the kind of business owner, the kind of leader that you are, that your team is willing to voice their opinions and willing to suggest new ideas, because some business owners can get in their way and think that they know everything, that they're ones that founded the company, and their way is the best way, when in reality, like, there are so many ways that it can be done, and there's probably a more efficient way, and if someone's had some experience in that, let's say, new service that you guys are offering, again, there's probably a more efficient way, and having that humility to realize that you don't know what you don't know, and that might be a better way, like you said, right? So that just goes to show that you're actually a leader and a business owner that is uplifting your team, and not just saying that that's what you should do. Like, your team is actually verifying it for you, right? So I mean, that's awesome to do, because that's one of the hardest things to do, is let your team help you grow your company.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, they're there, and I like to think, as for myself, again, I'm still trying to figure this out, and I'm like very purposefully trying to get better at this, but I try to think of the most effective managers that I ever had, and the one I could think of is, he could see it in my face if I understood something or not, and sometimes I would say, yeah, I got it. He would like not let me go, and he's like, do you really understand this? He's like, come here, let's do another example, until I finally actually understood, whatever hard concept. And he would sit there, teach me, mean, he was nice about it, but he also wanted to make sure that I understood it so that whenever I left, I can go and do that work well, right? So, um, yeah, just being a good leader is, I think, setting up your, your employees to succeed. And if they're not succeeding, then what are you doing wrong, and how could you help them?
So yes, I mean I agree 100% on that. That's a great point. What are you doing? Let's say in your journey, because I mean this is something we're all working on, right? And you said something earlier that I can resonate with, and I know every entrepreneur can resonate with. And if you say that you don't, then you're lying to yourself. But you said you're just trying to figure it out, right? Every level that we get to, we're just trying to figure out that new level. As we grow, we're figuring it out, right? And with becoming a better leader, with always, if your team continues to grow, you have to continue your leadership skills, and then you start teaching other team members how to be leaders and stuff. How are you working on building your leadership skills currently?
The podcasting, man, just trying to get the ideas. Actually, the RBO had a podcast not too long ago. I forget who was on there, but he was basically thinking, sometimes like even going around the tough talks, right? Sometimes you have to have those. And taking the time to figure out, okay, how do we come up with a good solution? Or, because there's times where, everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes, and the employees are going to make mistakes. As an employee, I made tons of mistakes. But I really appreciated when my manager, supervisors took the time and talked, said, hey, this isn't working. And what can we do to make this better? Or, hey, I've noticed, a little bit of a different shift in you, and try to really be, aim the conversation to find a good solution at the end that works for the both of you. So for me, and that was just one idea from that podcast. This All In book, I just finished listening to it. It has a ton of great ideas and throughout business, but a lot of like leadership ideas on how to like talk to your team, how to look at your team and use their strengths, and not just, kind of what we said, not just, hey, I'm right and you're wrong and do it this way, right? So yeah, it's being intentional and taking, you can't take everything from everyone, right? But what suits you and what suits your company and your employees and the type of people that you want with the company, because you can have employees that are great at their work but not good with people, or really great with people but not good at their work. So depending on what you need, you kind of tailor your leadership to what you want representing your company.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know you said that you listen to a lot of audiobooks. I'm very similar on that sense. Have you read any of like the Jocko Willings leadership books?
No. Which ones does he have?
So he has like the dichotomy of leadership, leadership tactics and strategies, and I forget what the third one is right now. But the reason I suggest it is because not only will that's what I use for leadership in the beginning and stuff as well, but I'm mentioning it because since you listen to audiobooks, it's awesome. Like they have, he basically goes back and he's a former military, and he starts off the chapter by basically a military story, a combat scenario, and then ties that same situation into the business world. Right. So it's cool. But when you're listening to it in audio, like honestly, it was cool. I listened to it twice because it was almost like watching a movie every time they were talking about like the war stuff, and it was cool. So I do recommend it. I'll shoot you over the link and stuff like that. So honestly, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm always looking
for.
I've been listening to Pushing People Up recently. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Not recommended. So I actually stopped listening to it. It was not a good audiobook. And actually, it's funny, I like started it before finishing this book, and like one of the last things he says on the All In book is if you start a book and you're just not feeling it, just stop. Like, stop
Yeah.
wasting your time. Go get the next book. It's not for you. It could be great for a lot of other people, but so I stopped. So now I'm looking for the next one. I listened to The Art of War for the first time this past week or two. Not too long. That was really cool. There's a lot of tidbits there. Have you listened to that one?
Yep, I've listened to it a couple
So
times. That one's one of those ones, in my opinion, you have to. I mean, because it's not a long audiobook, right? In terms of like, if I remember correctly, it's not too long. I haven't read it in like this year, but usually I'll read that one like once a year, and then there'll be like one knowledge nugget that I missed the last time I read it, or I may have remembered it or heard it the first time and it didn't resonate until now. So that there's a few books like that I'll kind of in between books, or if I'm trying to find a new book, I'll re-listen to a part of one.
yeah, that one, The Art of War, I thought it was really interesting because it could be basically what I gathered was you could, if you don't prepare, you'll mess up, and then it's basically all about super strategizing, and there's a way to mess up in any way that you go, but just trying to be the most prepared that you can. And I think that's a good book to like sit down and just start writing as you're listening to it, because I was not doing that. I was doing some, I was walking around, and I didn't write anything down, but I think that would be a great listen in the future. And just, thinking about, okay, where's the company going if we do that, or what are the competitors doing, and try to plan against that, and try to, it's the art of war, right? So you're against and competing with a lot of other businesses, right? But at the same time, with other accounts, I'm super open, even about pricing, how we do things, the softwares that we use. I think there's enough work for everybody, but this book definitely gives you that feeling of, okay, be super strategic in everything you do.
No, definitely. And I think that is a strategy, and I agree with you. Like that book, like I said, I listened to it the first time. The second time, if I read a book a second time, is when I take a few notes, and then sometimes I'll even do it a third time. But I'm talking about like a year apart, so like refreshing. But now, one, I've forgotten some of the information, but two, I'm at a different stage in business, or at least I hope to be at a different stage in business. So some information just resonates differently with you at different levels of business. Right. And then so each time I do take notes and then try to implement them and stuff. But usually I take it on my phone as I'm listening, or, doing that. So I think that's awesome. And what you said, I also think was huge. A huge point you kind of glazed over real quick was that you're open with other accountants, other companies, right? You believe there's enough business for everyone, and there is, right? So there's two areas to go, right? There's collaboration and then there's competition, right? And at the same time, you could do both. At the end of the day, you're not going to give someone like food off of your plate, right? So that's where the natural competition comes in. But that doesn't need to mean that it's basically only competition. When you collaborate with other accountants, with other business owners and stuff like that, like you start to learn more, and both of you guys can elevate each other, right? So it's one of those things where at the end of the day, when it push comes to shove, are you going to be competitive? 100%. But that doesn't mean you can't help other people along the way who are going to only say good things about you. And essentially, if let's say they can't do a service that maybe you do, that's how you get referrals, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And like I said, other accountants, I am like fully open, and it's because when I started, setting up Sunnyside, I met with an accountant, Enrique Medina, super knowledgeable, always been a great resource for me. And I went to him, and he was just talking to me about his business, and he had been open at the time for like 10-12 years. And he's like, look, I'm gonna tell you stuff because I don't want you to go through it and go through it the hard way. So I told him my rates. He's like, you need to double that. He's like, you're doing us all a disservice by being solo, because then you're devaluing what we do. And like, here's this other stuff. And he would even give me templates and everything. That was so helpful for me starting off, so I really got into that mindset of, what, I haven't taken any business from him. He's doing great. I'm going to do the same thing for all these. And the crazy thing is that we were kind of in the same inner circle of people. We had known each other, and we had mutual friends for, I don't know, 10, 15 years before that, right? And then now I entered, and he's like, hey, let me, extend his arm, let me help you up, and let me help you get going. And to this day, I still talk to him and a lot of his network. And yeah, I think if you can collaborate and still keep that competitive drive, right? You're not necessarily going straight up against them, but you want to deliver a really good product and be competitive against whatever the other accountant is delivering, or if not better, right? You're trying to be the best. And
Right.
but you're also trying to make sure that that you can give to them, and then they also give to you. And same like the employees giving you ideas, well, these other accounts also have really great ideas. So I think the more you can share and the more you learn from other accountants, the better. Even pricing has always been an issue for me, right? I started way too low, and we're still really low. But seeing what they're doing kind of gives you the encouragement, and also hopefully you have some good knowledge for them of here's how we're doing things and how we're taking advantage of this situation. You guys should implement that yourselves. So yeah, the competitive drive is always there, but the collaborative, I think that's what makes the difference in your network and in how successful your business can be.
No, definitely. I mean, yeah, like you said, him giving you his price sheet and stuff like that is only, it's not the insides and prepared like secretive knowledge that his company uses. He's giving it to you because, again, it's raising his value as well. Because if you're too
Right.
low, then people are coming to you versus him or anyone
Right.
else, and that's not necessarily a good thing for you or them. So, like, I mean, when I had my personal training company, like I gave the other personal trainers, like when they asked how much I charge, this is my sheet. Like the new trainers that were coming
Mhm.
on, look, this is my sheet. Do it. If you don't think you're worth it, believe me, people pay it. Like, and I will help you, do these things, and then all of a sudden, then it makes everyone win, right? But when you want to be super secretive, and then you, let's say, all of a sudden need help, guess what? No one wants to collaborate with you
Right.
because you weren't willing to collaborate with them in the beginning. So it's a double-edged sword. If you are only competitive mindset and not collaborative at all, again, you just got to be careful because it's going to be a lonely road sometimes.
Right.
But no, that's awesome. And I think you're going about it an awesome way. What are some of the common issues or common questions that people have with their accounting or with their bookkeeping that you get all the time from your clients?
Oh man. Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions. Like we get a lot of like startups, so even everything from registering things, or a lot of people that start entering the sales tax world at first. There's a lot of questions there, but I think most of our clients right now, and this is why we're expanding in the tax realm and doing more tax planning and tax strategy, is how do we save money on taxes? That everybody wants to do that, right? Save it. And there's like a very fine balance because, you know, there's a potential where we could claim that you made, a business profited $10,000, and the client's like, yes, great, less money on taxes legally, right? But then they're trying to get a house. So then we have to bring that up, and we have to say, well, we could do that and take accelerated depreciation and take all of these other things, and you investing in this and expensing that. Or could you wait a little bit until next year? Let's get your taxes done. You qualify for your house, and then you can go and invest and, well, obviously see how you feel after you have that big mortgage payment. So a lot of tax questions, S-corping, and a lot of payroll questions, different types of write-offs. And, I'm even getting some questions about like retirement plans, which that's not my realm. I have my own like person that I go to, a financial advisor for that stuff. But, with that experience, I could kind of guide them, with giving them some ideas, and then turn them over to the person that does that full time, right? So a lot of that, and just being organized, or can we take this right off? Can we take that right off? And but yeah, the tax questions are pretty heavy right now.
Yeah. What's one thing that maybe someone doesn't realize can be a write-off that is a write-off for a new startup?
Accounting services. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can write this off. And yeah, so accounting services, or people don't really understand when they're driving, that they should be counting their miles. That's super huge, especially for like photographers, and I don't know, people that just drive a lot, they don't understand how that works. Or some people think that they could just write off their car because they heard that they could just write off their car, and like, well, you still need a personal vehicle, you know. But I think mileage is huge, and even getting some of the home office benefits. And this is, for the smaller businesses, and some people, even their phone, right? You're using your phone for your business, and so we could write off a certain percentage of that. But yeah, I mean, I've explained everything from like, hey, if you buy a pen and a pencil, or even some earbuds, right? Like, for example, these guys, they don't leave my desk. It's for when I want to be a focused machine here, and put them on, put on some good music, and so that's helping the productivity of my business. And so, as long as we could explain it, um, and we have a good story for the IRS and a good reasoning, and it's something normal and ordinary and necessary is what their verbiage. Then we could write it off. So, and it depends on the business, right? I probably couldn't buy a paint sprayer, but there's a lot of construction businesses that could, right, and then write it off. So, there's a lot of gray area.
But if you bought a paint sprayer for your business when you're, let's say, renovating or something like that, would that then
Right.
be a write-off?
Yeah, then yeah, because you needed it to set up your business, that initial cost, that initial investment, to create the space that's gonna have your clients in them, right? So, for example, if I have a home office, but if I ever go get an office, probably need a couple ladders, some paint sprayers, and some rollers. So yeah, at that point, then yeah, I probably could. Right now, probably not, but yeah, yeah, exactly. It depends on the situation, right? So I always tell clients, hey, imagine the IRS agent is sitting here and they ask you why you bought that. How could you explain that, right?
Right. That makes sense. All right. So before we wrap up, I got a question for you, and I started having to preface this before I asked the question because I got an answer that was a tombstone reading, and it was not. This is not a tombstone, right? This is your legacy wall. On your legacy wall, it basically says, obviously your name, but then under it there's a message. It doesn't have to be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be anything. But what is your legacy message that either one you read, you heard, or something that you've learned along the way to get to where you are now that you would like to leave for everyone else?
Oh man, see, you should have sent this one.
No, see, okay, hold on, and I'll give you a second to think about it while I explain why. The reason I don't send this one, right, is
Yeah.
because if you think about it for too long, it's not the message that really has sat with you this whole time. And the message
Mhm.
doesn't have to be super profound. What is that one, like, right, first thing that comes to your top of your mind? What is that message?
I think right now it's get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's the only way that you're gonna grow. And I mean, that's kind of how we started this, right? Like, put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, and you're gonna get better. The only way that you're gonna grow is going into things that you're thinking are outside of your normal, right? So we would reword it for the legacy board. Just yeah, be comfortable with putting yourself in situations that are going to make you grow, and they're not going to feel good, but eventually, it'll mold you into the person that you want to be, or that you want to get to. And ideally, you're putting yourself in a situation where you could keep growing and growing and growing.
See, I mean, that's awesome.
That's what it.
And sometimes, it doesn't feel like those messages, that legacy wall message is, profound, but that is something that resonated with you, and it is profound because realize that, like, we like to be comfortable. We like to,
Mhm.
sit in the known, right? Because fear is only what is unknown. So you are a living testament to that, and that's why it's the first thing that comes to mind. What is it? And that's basically, your legacy up for now, right?
Right.
You've been a walking testament of that, and you're continuing to do it. So I got to give you a hats off to that. Where can people connect with you?
I mean, we're on Facebook, Instagram. That's like our main ones. We do have YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn, but don't really use YouTube or Twitter. So Instagram and Facebook at Sunnyside ACCT. short for accounting, Sunnyside ACCT. Both Facebook, actually everything's set up like that. So, or if people want to shoot me an email, Remberto at sunnysideacct.com.
Perfect. And then do you have like a personal social media?
I do, but that's just like me, my wife, and my son.
Okay.
You know, that's not for the, the business side.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, all Sunnyside stuff we do it through that Sunnyside name.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes. Guys, make sure that you guys share this episode with a friend, right? Someone else that might be in a role that they're trying to or want to get out and get uncomfortable. But again, it can be scary to dive into that world. Send them this episode. Leave us that 5-star review. And Beto, thank you so much for coming on today, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun. This was really cool. Thank you so much. Thanks for bearing with me on my first podcast.
No, of course, man. I'm glad to, not to sound weird, glad to be your first.
Thanks.
I appreciate you, brother. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slack.